We'll get started here just right at 5:30. We'll allow some more of the guests get in. So if y'all need to grab water, go to the restroom or anything, go ahead and do that. And I'm going to keep myself muted and just maintain the weight room here. All righty. Well, I think we're good to get things started. If you're ready, Representative Garner.
I'm ready.
All righty. Well, first off, let me thank you for taking time out of your day during the legislative session to meet with us. I know that you have had a very busy session. I know it's been very different than other sessions that we faced in the past. We really want to make sure that we don't gloss over too much, so much is going on, but we do want to afford you the opportunity to just kind of give us an update from your perspective on things that have been going on. I've got a list of the different committees that you're in here, so we can ask about some of the bills that you might have been working on in some of those committees. But to kick things off, first thing I want to do is thank our sponsors. I know a lot of our sponsors have been involved in this in years past. We have some new ones. So the fact that we're able to continue supporting the community with these updates, even during COVID, virtually, however we can do it, I think it's beneficial to everybody and all of our residents and the members of the Chamber of Commerce. Really thank you for taking the time to not only for our sponsors to sponsor the event, but to you, Representative Garner, for taking time out of your day to meet with us. So thank you again so much. Absolutely. So our sponsors, AT&T, Black Hills Energy, and Ozarks Electric, thank you as well. They're always very involved with our political forums in the process. And so we appreciate them helping us spread the word on what is happening at the legislature. We think it's important that everybody stays kind of tuned in and plugged into what's going on. So to kick things off, some of our members may be listening and hearing from you for the very first time. So let's let you kind of welcome yourself to them and kind of let them know a little bit about yourself.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm Denise Garner, and I am state rep for District 84, which includes South Springdale, North and East Fayetteville, and then some of the suburbs of Fayetteville, Elkins and Greenland and West Fork and Prairie Grove. So I've got kind of a suburban Fayetteville and then kind of a variety of county district in the district as well. So I love my district. It's wonderful. Wide variety. My background is in nursing, actually, and I ran for office last session. And so this is my second session and second election cycle. So I'm glad to be there. I feel like I know a little bit more than I did last year. So
absolutely. So can you kind of tell us about, your second year here in the legislature? What are some of the initiatives that you've kind of been honed in on and focusing with? And have there been any changes on your workload as far as committees or any of that?
Absolutely. There've been a lot of changes. Obviously, COVID has been a huge change. We're social distancing, and we've got plexiglass around each one of our seats. We've changed committee schedules so that we're alternating committees, some in the morning, some in the afternoon. So the day can be much longer, but we're able to socially distance. We're checked in every day for temperature and any symptoms and things like that, so that we're trying to keep safe. And very first thing we did was vote in rules of the House so that we would make sure that we're all wearing masks when we're sitting at our desk, and make sure that we can keep everybody as safe as we can. So that's been the biggest difference. One of the things that I get so frustrated about is that we don't have opportunities to get to know each other, and COVID has just exacerbated that problem. It's hard to get to know your colleagues if you're separated from them and can't visit with them. And that's the way we really get to know each other and what our backgrounds are, what our interests are. That's
Sure.
The way we work together. So that's been a little frustrating that we haven't been able to do some of that. It's very difficult to get a large group in one room at the same time. And it's a little more difficult to find time because of the way we're scheduled to get together with even smaller groups. So that's been a little difficult.
So a little bit more on that. So do you have any advice for maybe any groups or organizations that might want to take a visit down to Little Rock? Is it still not a good time to meet with legislators? Are there precautions that they can take to do that?
Yes, and absolutely. And we are making certain that we try to make room for folks that come down and testify for bills. I would call to make sure that someone knows you're coming.
Sure.
We have separate rooms from the committees if you're coming to testify. I just had a resolution yesterday or day before yesterday for Fayetteville Public Schools, who are turning 150 years old. We're real proud of them.
Mhm.
And, we had a small group come down to watch the resolution. We only have one gallery open, and in the galleries, people are still having to socially distance, and everybody wears masks and that kind of thing. So we're still being very, very careful.
Good to hear.
But you can do it. Yeah, you can do it. There are check-ins at each door of the Capitol and at the Big Mac building where we have most of our committee meetings if we're not in the Capitol. And there are check-in stations there where we can get temperature checked and
Mhm.
wristbands. So people know that you've checked in and been screened.
So during this pandemic, a lot of the way that we receive communication has changed across the board, from social media to people in school, college, all of that. How has that changed the communication flow for people that might want to be, more involved in the legislature? Are there any online resources that you would point people towards during the pandemic to get kind of timely updates?
Absolutely. I'm very much trying to continue posting daily on the COVID rates, on the vaccine rates, and any kind of information that comes out, particularly due to COVID. And then I try at least on Friday to kind of give a summary of the bills that have passed the House. I haven't been able to, just because the House has been so busy, I have not been able to go back and check all of them to make sure that they've become law.
Mhm.
But I at least give the House bills, and of course, if they're Senate bills and we vote on them in the House, then they do become law as long as the governor signs those bills. And so far, he's signed everything. So I do try to keep everybody up on Facebook and Instagram. Instagram and Twitter are a little bit more limited in the information that you can give out, but a lot of times I'll link my Facebook page, which is pretty detailed.
Sure.
So every day I have a detailed list, and that's on my personal page and my campaign page. So I try to make sure that both of those are updated. As far as, social media has been a big way to do that. For constituents, I get hundreds of emails, and the only thing I ask is that, and I read every one of them. I cannot get back to every one of them in a timely fashion sometimes, but I do read them, and I do try to get back, at least to let people know that I have seen them and that I appreciate their comments. And if I know how I'm going to vote on that particular bill, I'll make sure to let them know that. But we get emails. I give out my phone number, and I'm glad to do that on the chat if you haven't already, or don't do that. But I'm glad to give out my cell phone. People
You give that out if you want to. I won't give yours out.
Well, I'm glad to do that. So I'm glad to do that, and folks text me, and then you can also call the House or the Senate and leave a message for us, and they will bring little pink slips to our desk. And I even posted that on one of my social media pages, on all of them, but one day in my Facebook, just all of the pink slips that are all over my desk. And so we certainly read those, and that's a good way to get last minute information, especially if a bill's coming up that I may not have seen in committee. So that's a good way to do that as well.
Well, thank you. Absolutely. So right now that we're kind of just over halfway through the session, hopefully just over halfway through the session, for those that have been maybe too busy trying to get their business back up and running during the COVID recovery process, or those that, just have had too much going on in their lives and they're just now tuning in, what are some of the kind of takeaways that you would leave them with on what the first session has looked like and what we can look forward to in the next?
Well, we've had 300 bills so far that have been signed into law so far, and I'm hoping that we can get out of there quickly. I think the longer we stay, the longer the bills are somewhat arbitrary. I think that we've spent I actually had lunch with the governor today, and this is one of the things I discussed with him. I think we spent a lot of time on ideological issues and
Sure.
not enough time on the things that really matter to everyday Arkansans. So, we spent lots and lots of time on stand your ground, lots and lots of time on abortion bills, those things that really most Arkansans are not dealing with during COVID. We need to spend more time with the economy and healthcare and education and some of those kinds of things. I think that we really have that people have really struggled with. The one thing that I think COVID, the one positive note, maybe the silver lining for a terrible year, is that some of our systemic inequities have been highlighted.
Mhm.
So I do think that because of COVID, we've seen some issues that have been going on for a long time, but now affect a whole lot more people.
Mhm.
So I do think that we are trying to look at those kinds of things. We are trying to get some of those things done. I will say that many of the executive orders that the governor presented during COVID have been extended. A lot of the services, telemedicine,
Mhm.
televet, behavioral sciences, some of those kinds of things have been extended. So now they've been codified so that those are permanent. Those are permanent issues. So those kinds of things I think are good. This session, I decided that I really needed to know to spend a whole lot more time with budget and tax and revenue. And so I am on the budget committee
Mhm.
and on revenue and tax this time. And we've done some things that I think will be very helpful for Arkansans in general. One is PPP, those businesses that got PPP loans and have done everything right and have been forgiven those federal taxes will also be forgiven Arkansas taxes. So I'm excited about that one. I think that will be a benefit to all of our Arkansas businesses who really tried hard to keep their employees
Sure.
and
Yeah.
not have to pay taxes for that. And actually, because of the way the year was broken up, they'll actually kind of get two in one. They get the exemptions from 20, and then they'll get the they'll get the expenses exempted in 20, and then they'll get the 21 tax forgiven as well. So that's something that I think will really benefit most Arkansas businesses. So I'm excited about that. We've done some things with the schools. Tried to make sure that the education ratings are exempt this year. We're not going to rate the schools because you just can't deal with school ratings when we haven't had kids in school and we haven't had the exams that need to be. I don't like school ratings anyway. I just as soon not do them ever.
Right.
But it is something that we're not doing this year. So that's a good thing. In the adequacy study, we on education last year, we got a 2.3% increase across the board for education. There was some talk that would be decreased a little bit. Some of that would have to be used for teacher salaries. And, we spent a lot of time with the governor, and we figured out a way to make sure that the teachers get their salary raises and the schools get their adequacy ratings. So I'm excited about that. There's some good things that have happened. I just feel like this session has been a little more contentious. I feel like Washington has come to Little Rock for the first time in a long time. And that's been difficult. We're actually looking at a resolution to deal with civil discourse and a little more civility in the House. And So we're trying to make that happen, but it's been difficult, especially with COVID and the fact that we can't get together more.
Sure, absolutely. And kind of in that same realm, the American Rescue Plan has recently received House approval.
Right.
I'm not sure if y'all have any kind of word on how this might affect states, how the funding might be get allocated, or what that even looks like for our state. I'm not sure if you have any more insight that you could give some of our
Well,
members on that.
it's obviously it's just happening, but again,
Right.
in the conversation with the governor today, one of the things that we talked about was broadband and how important we all know that we realize that broadband is for everything, and COVID has certainly highlighted that. And so, we're hoping we feel like with this new set of funding that we'll have we'll have millions of dollars to put into broadband assistance. So that's something that I think will happen. Everybody wants broadband. We understand how important it is for everyone to have broadband access. So that's something that I think will be good. Some of the ESSER funds were a little bit different. They allow the second round of ESSER funds for education allowed for some physical plant kinds of funding. So I think that will help. The funding obviously is going to be a huge help, and the governor has been good to listen to us about how we feel some of that money needs to be spent. So I think that's been good. I personally have been pleased. I don't always agree with the governor, but I personally have been pleased with his COVID response. There are times that I wish he'd done what he'd done a little bit earlier than what he did.
Sure.
And I encouraged him to do that, but I think he's done the right thing. We've got some in the House and Senate that don't feel that way. So, there's some bills that have passed to limit executive power a little bit in some of those situations. But all in all, I think the things that he's done have been effective, and we know that they're effective, and a lot of those executive orders are now being codified. So they're perfect. Alcohol from microbreweries and liquor stores can be delivered now in wet counties. Some of those kinds of things that happened on an emergent basis will continue. So,
do you know if there are any other bills in the works right now that might impact Arkansans on an economic standpoint? Outside of just the way that the money's being allocated for the American Rescue Plan, is there any word on how or any new bills that are coming into the second half here that will impact Arkansans? You mentioned a tax bill that was being worked on.
Well, the PPP funds, there's still some tax bills that we haven't seen yet. That I'm sure are being worked on that I just haven't seen yet. There's still an EITC bill out there. There's still, this is not to do with taxes necessarily, but there's still a hate crimes bill out there that we haven't seen a final version on. There's several out there that we haven't seen.
Sure.
The soda tax still has not been voted on. We'll look at that, and we've talked about it in Tax and Rev, but we haven't voted on it yet. So that's still out there. That we're trying to do everything we can do to make sure that if there are federal monies out there, and that if we can figure out ways to make life easier for Arkansans, we're going to do that. And so anything that's out there, we're certainly open to making sure that they get a very, very close look. And DFNA has been really good to help us with some of those kinds of things. And they're generally not wanting to cut revenues from DFNA, but they've been good too. So they've been good to help. We know that Arkansans are hurting, and we want to make sure that we can do everything we can do. There's actually a pass-through. There's a pass-through bill that we've passed in the House that will actually give Arkansans an opportunity. It has to do with the salt tax, but it can give Arkansans businesses now an opportunity to utilize the top tax bracket, but if they do that, then they get a lower tax rate from the federal government. So for the first time, I think the Arkansas budget would increase, and the customers would actually get a big decrease from the federal government. So that's something that we actually were looking at before the federal government had guidelines on that. And now that the feds have guidelines on that, we passed it in the House as well. So hopefully that'll be passed in the Senate if it hasn't been already. And again, I apologize. I can barely keep up with the bills that are coming through the House right now.
Understandable. We completely understand.
All that have been passed in the Senate, but.
So there is I would say, a stark contrast between our neighboring state, Texas, and Arkansas when it comes to the COVID precautions being lifted.
Right.
Do you have any kind of opinion or perspective on how Arkansas can continue to do better and protect ourselves going forward? You know, before we get to the end of this pandemic, I think there's still some things that need to be done. I didn't know if you had any kind of perspective or opinion on how we could help or how the business community could help.
I think there are, obviously we actually ended up passing a bill today through the House that basically says businesses are not liable for what their customers do, and that the ABC cannot now mandate that the businesses are making their customers do the things that they really should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's a good bill. Did pass. That's not, I don't think it's the best for the common good, and that's not a public health initiative. That's, I think the argument is that individuals should know what to do now and they should take care of it. But when it's a public health issue and what an individual does affects someone else, mm-hmm. then that's when it becomes an issue that government, I think, has to step in. I voted against that bill, but it passed. But I do think that our business certainly has not opened up. We have restaurants. We have not opened up to 100% capacity. We're still very limited inside. We're still doing deliveries. We're still mandating masks. So we're still trying to do, and I think most businesses are trying to do some of those things. But I'm asking the businesses to continue those things, because it is important. Until we have more people vaccinated, we need to be doing those things. And yes, there is light at the end of the tunnel. It's amazing to watch people's attitude once they've had that first shot and the second shot and that kind of thing. It's huge, mm-hmm. but it's not over yet. We do not have nearly enough people vaccinated to be lifting some of these mandates. So, mm-hmm. or at least the guidelines. So we need to be following those guidelines as
Absolutely.
well.
Absolutely.
And watching closely, we need to be watching closely for these variants. And I don't think, I think that we're going into a good season for keeping folks safe. Mm-hmm. As long as we're outside and the sun's shining, then there's not nearly that risk of mm-hmm. the variants. But it could happen again in the fall and the winter. So we need to be careful. We need to save those masks. Don't get rid of them yet. We may be needing them again, and certainly still for right now. But I do think this summer we should have much better summers than we did last summer, and be able to get out and do things. The CDC put out guidelines for those who have been vaccinated. So if you've been vaccinated, you can get together with other folks that have been vaccinated. And, there's some things that you can do to, and feel very, very safe doing them. So there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely. We agree. And we're ready to get back to normal. And the Chamber's got a lot of campaigns that we'll be pushing out kind of in between thens to get people back to normal. And Absolutely. So we're excited for that. For those that joined.
Yeah, I was just going to say that when I'm down here for long periods of time, I can't tell you how proud I am of Arkansas and the Arkansas businesses and the Arkansas city government and the way that we all work together, the nonprofits, the way we all work together and for the good of the constituents and Fayettevilleans. So anyway, thank you for that. I'm proud of y'all.
Absolutely. And we're proud of you. We really appreciate the work you do down in Little Rock. I know as the minority whip, you've got an uphill battle every day. So we appreciate the work that you put in. For those that have joined here today, Representative Clowney did have a meeting that popped up at 5. So we are going to schedule out another update with her either this coming Friday or next Wednesday or the Friday after that. We'll push out some information on that once we can lock in those details. For those that tuned in today, thank you so much. We really appreciated having Representative Garner come and give us a legislative update. Before we allow her to kind of close up with her final thoughts, I do want to thank AT&T, Black Hills Energy, and Ozarks Electric for continuing to support our legislative forums, even though we're now at a virtual format. We do hope we get back to in person at the library. We love working with the Fayetteville Public Library with these forums, but as the times call for, we had to pivot, and we really appreciate them supporting us while we put these on. It looks like Representative Garner has put her number in the chat for those that may need it. So feel free to grab that if you want to get a hold of her for more questions or some answers on some bills and stuff that she's been working on. Representative Garner, thank you again so much for taking time out of your day. I know you have a very busy week, very busy schedule. If you have anything you'd like to close with, the floor is yours.
Well, I just thank you guys so much for sending me to Little Rock. Most days I feel blessed. Some days I curse a few of you that talked me into it, but it's a great time to be down here, and it's challenging at best, but I do think we're working hard, and I do think that sometimes stopping some of the ideological bills is the best we can do, and but I do think there have been some good bills passed as well. So if there's anything that I can do to help, please call me and text me. I try to get home on Saturday. We've been staying on Friday and I have to be back Sunday night, but I'm home on Saturday. So call me there if you need to. I feel blessed to be here, and I feel blessed to be representing a district that I love and that is willing to have an open mind about progressive ideas, willing to try new things, and I love you all. I'm so glad to be in Northwest Arkansas. It's a great village for sure.
We are lucky to have you representing us down in Little Rock. So thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, for those that are tuning in or maybe watching this after we have uploaded it, stay tuned and look for more updates on us doing another briefing here in the next couple of weeks or so. We hope that Representative Garner may be able to join us, but we understand if her schedule doesn't permit. She's quite busy. But thank you again for joining us today, and y'all have a great night.
Thank you.